Welcome to another episode of Coding with Annie, author of DataShip. Here's another interview question. Identify returning active users by finding users who've made a second purchase within 7 days of any previous purchase and output as a list of these users. So the table is pretty simple. ID, that's probably transaction ID here, user ID, uniquely identify the user, the transaction date, the item, and revenue. So here's some sample data here. Let's take a look at what the data looks like. I have chosen the latest version of Postgres. I'm hitting the run button, but you can do control return or alt return on Windows machine. So the data looks like this, right? So that's good. So let's tackle this question here. Now, there's multiple ways to answer this question, but let's just try a self-join way. So I'm going to, because we need to know per user any transaction that they have created plus any other transaction. And if those two transactions are within 7 days, then we can answer this question. So here, T1, just name this first one, T1 user ID and T1 transaction date. Okay, we'll do a self join, transaction T2, and the T2, because we already know it's the same user ID due to the join condition we're going to put in, we'll just put in uh, transaction date 2. Okay, here we can go on T1.user ID equals to T2 user ID. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Oh, there's this extra comma here. Okay. So for 101, we have made a purchase on the 7-1, and then other purchases, 714, 718, and 7-1 by itself too. So we don't actually want the one to correlate with itself. So we're going to say where and T1 dot transaction date not equal to T2 dot transaction date. That will make it a lot easier to see the distinct ones. There you go. So for T1 here, 101, made some transactions. Here's another one, right? 101 and this one. Okay. So we're picking them all up. 7-1 and 714, 7-1 and 728. And then the correlation 714 to 7-1 and 714 to 728. So now, because we want to know within 7 days, so we can just go T1 dot transaction date minus T2 dot transaction date as a diff. Right, let's see, can find the differences date. So there it is. Sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after. But since we want only ones that are within 7 days of each other, we can do a where clause, absolute T1 minus T2 transaction date. And there you go. So these are all the permutation of transactions that are within 7 days of each other per user ID. Now, the question asks a list of users. So you can make this into a table expression, but I'm just going to do a subquery just to, have a different flavor. Okay, select from distinct T1 user ID. Oh, there's no T1 at this point. There you go. So now we have all the distinct users that made a purchase within 7 days of any previous purchase. So this is solution number 1. Now, I can show you a different way to tackle this problem using a table function. Now, often, if T1 and T2 are very, very large tables, like in the billions, this self-join could be very large. So sometimes we might not want a self-join solution. So let's try another way. Start again from transaction T1, same thing. T1 ID, T1 transaction date. Now I'm gonna lag this transaction date. Actually, at this point, I don't really need T1 because there's no join. So now I'm gonna lag it. How am I gonna lag it? I'm gonna partition by user ID, and I'm going to order by transaction date descending, say. And this will be previous order by ascending. Okay, say ascending. And this will be um, as previous transaction date. Okay. Actually, we can get rid of all T1s just to make it clear. And we don't really need an alias right now. So one table. Transactions. So here it is. So what we did is per record, for each record that we have, we're going to find the previous transaction date for this user because we're saying partition by this user. So there's 101 has this 3 transactions, and we've ordered by transaction date and we lagged it. So we lagged it by 1, the default is 1. So that means on this day, there is no previous transaction. That's why it's null. On 7/14, the previous transaction for 101, the date is 7/1, and so on. And on 7/28, the previous day is 7/14. And we do that for each and every user. So here we have this one. We sorted all the transaction, and then now we lag the transaction date by 1. So now this is all in one line. And what we can do is, let's move to a bigger screen here. Some spacing here happening. So we can go transaction date minus, and then we just grab this whole line. Okay, as date diff. Now let's see how this looks as query transaction. Previous transaction. Oh, okay, so I forgot a comma here. All right, let's run this again. Okay. So if we did this, we can see that 7/14 minus this is 13 days and so on. So now we can actually find the date diff. So we don't have to worry about the nulls because the null says there is no previous date. So this will be excluded. Okay. So now what we can do is, we'll just use table expression again because this is quite a long expression. So we can go like this with user ordered transactions as. And what we can do here is select distinct user ID from this table expressions we created, where we calculate the difference in date is less than equal to 7. So if we run this, we get the same answer. So, but there's just 2 different ways of solving the same problem. And it's good to know both. Sometimes you do, if it's 2 small tables, you can do inner join, self-join with each other. And if it's very large table, sometimes we have to go with a table with a window function. So great, thank you. Hopefully, you've learned something. And if you find this tutorial very helpful, please like and subscribe. Thank you.